This episode of Tales from Sulmona is all about family, the founding pillar of our society. Our history as Italians is full of stories about people who had to leave their home country after World War II, hoping they would find a better life abroad, often bringing their families with them or building new ones. And the story today's guest is going to tell you is about one of these families and how he is climbing back through his family history to rediscover his own roots. Meet Richard Daddario from New York.
Part of the reason why I'm here is that my four grandparents are from the Abruzzi region. My one grandmother, La Morticella, and she's from Sulmona. What I understand, there are still people in Sulmona whose name, the Sulmona family people are still here, and I'm interested in finding some and meeting them. But there's an interesting story about my other three grandparents. They're from a town called Sale, which is up in the mountains close to here. And around 1900, 1905, the city had structural problems. It started to fall, the actual city started to fall off the side of the mountain. Cracks developed in the streets, and houses on the edge of town by the precipice started falling off. Geologists were called in from Rome, and the city was condemned. Sale was condemned, the Sale Vecchio as it's called now. And the people there were told that they had to move from Sale Vecchio down the mountain to an area that was more stable, flat and more stable. And that was the time, the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century, when I guess, America was the place to go. America, Brazil, Argentina, and Australia. The people were emigrating. The life here was poor, I was told. My older relatives tell me, yes, they have these wonderful stories about the old days in Italy, but the truth was that at night people went to bed with empty stomachs. They went to bed hungry, and they wanted a better life than the farming life that they had in Sal. So instead of moving down the mountain, those three went to America. My mother's family went to New York City. They went to a little area in New York City called Astoria, where there were so many people from Sal that a Salés club was formed. People, the old guys would go and drink red wine and play pinochle. And for me, it was very, very interesting because I was born in this. I was born in that community. Every third house was somebody that I knew. It was very much like a little Italian village in the middle of New York City. The backyards we used to grow wine. Grapes in the backyards that used to shade us in the summer, and in the fall we'd pick the grapes, and we'd borrow a grape press and press the grapes and make wine, and we didn't have enough space to grow tomatoes, but we used to buy tomatoes, and my whole family would get together sometime in the fall and cook bushels and bushels of tomatoes and make tomato sauce and put them in jars. But I'm getting far afield. So where was he? So yes, so the three grandparents went with my fourth grandparent from Sulmona. My mother's family went to Astoria, and my father's family went to New Britain, Connecticut. Unfortunately, my father's parents died. My grandmother from Sulmona died in 1925. She was having her fourth child, and she and the child died during the birth of the child. My father and his two sisters were taken from my grandfather, put into an orphanage. My grandfather worked for 2 years trying to get them back. He finally did get them back. 2 years later, he died, and then my father and his two sisters went to, well, one of the sisters went with a different family member, but my father and his sister went into an orphanages. It was a hard life. But my father's side knew my mother's side because they were all from the same area. And my father's cousin invited him to visit her in Astoria one year, and he met my mother, who was part of the big circle of friends and family that were there, and they fell in love and got married. So he, having a scattered family in Connecticut, when he was married, moved to New York just to be with my mother's family, and that's so I know my mother. I grew up with my mother's family more than my father's, though I'm close to my father's family. As a matter of fact, my cousin Floria is hoping to visit me as well, my father's sister's daughter, and she's a DiCenzo. And as it turns out, I came to find out just the other day, there are DiCenzos in Chautauqua. So I wrote Floria and her brother William very quickly, and I said, hey, you gotta get over here. There not only is your grandmother from Sulmona, and we have La Morticellas here. I came to find out that there are DiCenzos in Chautauqua. So as soon as I make a contact, I'll get you guys in touch. But you should come over and try to meet them yourself. So.
Once Richard got to Sulmona, he was shocked, but in a good way.
The day that I got here, I was almost shocked. I looked around. I looked at the mountains covered with snow. I looked at the people walking around, and the shops, and the homes, and the stores. I felt like I was. My first impression was that I was in Switzerland. You know, with the old village and the mountains. And then I said, well, looking at the people strolling, I felt like I was in France as well. And then I blinked a couple of times. I said, no, I'm here. This is a real Italian village, and that's thousands of years old, and it's got its own history. And I was very taken with Sulmona. I was very impressed and really surprised at how lucky I was to be here, how lucky I am to experience this lovely town. And the town of Sulmona, I had been to Rome before, I had been to Pescara before, and I had been to another little town in the Abruzzi region called Sale, first time in Sulmona. Now, Sale was a country town like Pugnata. It was farming people. It was charming in its own way. But Sulmona is very different. Sulmona is not just a little farming village. There are palaces here and beautiful streets and the aqueduct from medieval times. You can feel the hundreds of years and the history and the culture. Feel in the air the centuries that have transpired here. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased. I email my family back home and my friends. I write a little travel journal. I've been retired for almost 3 years now, and I've been traveling around. I was in Spain, I was in Turkey, I was in Mexico, and it's all through the United States. So I write a little journal, and I have written my friends, but I tell them it's very difficult to describe what the feeling is here. For me as an American to come back and to look at the city, to realize that God knows how many generations of my family have walked around these streets for literally thousands of years, and that's the feeling that I have. But also the visual, it's impossible to describe. All these palaces and the old buildings and the cobblestone streets and how narrow it is and how beautiful it is today still with even the street lights are gorgeous. the mountains, and the Grand Sasso off in the distance. I'm very taken with it. I'm shocked at how brilliant and the feeling that I have that I'm here. I'm very impressed. I write my family and I say, I really don't have the words to describe what it's like here. You know, what this village, what this town looks like. It's not really a city. It's not really a big metropolitan city like Pescara, which would be easier for me to describe. You know, this is something. The centuries are in the air here. You know, it's not a big international city like Berlin or Hamburg or even Rome or possibly Milan. Even though they have their own charm. This is totally removed from that. Every time I go to Piazza Garibaldi, and it's more and more familiar, I feel better and better. It's somehow I'm holding it closer and closer.
When it comes to food, an Italian-American like Richard is a little bit spoiled by his family, so the classic enthusiasm about local cuisine doesn't happen. But nevertheless, he has something to say about the quality of the food we have here in Abruzzo, and especially in Sulmona.
When my relatives left here and went to the United States, they brought the recipes. They brought the recipes with them. So I am, as much as I like the food here, and there are things here that I like very, very much, I still have, I am spoiled with my Italian family and the wonderful food and the wonderful recipes that were Italian and now are Italian American. We cook very, very similarly. I took a cooking class. It felt very, very much like I was back in my mother and my grandmother's kitchen. So the food here is not a shock to me. I'm used to it. I'm used to the fabulous Italian kitchen. I did find that there was two things that shocked me in the Italian class. We don't use celery like you use celery here. And in the cooking, they took one piece of garlic and put it in the sauce. In America, one piece of garlic is only the beginning. We use many more people, much more garlic than you do here. But what I am impressed with is the range of vegetables and fruits that you have here, and that they're more fresh. There's different vegetables that we don't have, and the prices for the food here is much less than the prices in New York. Now, of course, New York is New York is New York, and Sulmona is Sulmona. You know, if I were to go to a smaller place in the United States, the food prices would be a little less, but not anything like here. I was very, very surprised at that. It's amazing. It's amazing. Even the bread is cheaper. Bread, you know, I can get a loaf of bread here for €3 or €4. In the United States, bread is more expensive than that. In New York, we get good food, but here, every shop, every little corner place, even the markets, everything is fresh and delicious. I really enjoy it. I'm here on my own, so I don't go out to the restaurants a lot. I don't really enjoy going to a restaurant on my own. When my friends come, I'll go. So the other types of dishes that you have, you know, the veal dishes and the beef dishes, I'll sample them when my friends come. For the time being, I'm happy to go to Co-op or Conad and buy some tortellini and some brodo and make a soup and have some bread and make a salad and spinaci and scrambled eggs is one of my favorites, and I make so I make pasta and peas. It's one of my dishes. So I cook by myself. I cook on my own. some friends of mine were sick recently, and so I cooked for them. I made my 2 dishes. I made the spinaci and scrambled eggs and some lovely bread, and then the next night I cooked them the tortellini and brodo. So if you've never been to Italy, of course you have to go to Venice. Of course you have to go to Florence and Rome and possibly Milan and possibly Torino. And possibly Ravenna, and the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I suppose those are spots you have to see. But this is a town that I don't know how to describe it. It's yes, Rome is grand. The Grand Colosseum, but this is a town that's been here for thousands of years. That has architecture from thousands of years. Like I told my cousins in the United States, it's almost indescribable to walk down Corso Ovidio with no cars and people are strolling and there are arcades and ancient churches and gelato and people talking and walking and strolling and it's a unique sort of place for me. You go to Italy, so you see, you go to Rome, you do all the classical sort of hot spots, and yet if you miss a town like Sulmona, you will miss an experience that you'll never get in Rome, and you'll never get even in Florence. I mean, as beautiful as Florence is, it's a different experience than coming here and being in a contemporary Italian town, and yet you hold 2,000 years in your hand. Every time you walk down the street. Yes, so I would recommend that if people come to Italy, you must see Rome, you must see Florence. But if you miss if you miss Sulmona, or a place like Sulmona, maybe Ravenna or Sorrento or something, is similar places, you miss something that you'll never get in a big colossus like Rome or Florence. It's an experience that I don't seem to have the words for. Like you can describe Rome very easily because you use all these big superlative words, but Sulmona has a charm the words don't seem to come very easily for me. I tell my cousins I don't really have the words to explain to you the feeling here.